Hi everyone, today we're gonna talk about Florence Cathedral in Florence, Italy. It was during the 14th century when Europe had undergone a dramatic change from the Gothic of the late Middle Age to that of the Renaissance. The term Renaissance literally means rebirth in French, a period that many new forms of artistic marvels and architectural wonders that stand today. Florence, like many cities of the Renaissance, had been built over many years and so was home to numerous church, public buildings, and houses constructed with Romanesque and Gothic architecture. Therefore, when a revival of classical styles became popular, new edifices in the classical style were built alongside or added to the buildings of older styles. Florence in early 1400s still retained a rural aspect. Wheat fields, orchards, and vineyards could be found inside its wall, while flocks of sheep were driven bleating through the streets to the market near the baptistry of San Giovanni. But the city also had a population of 50,000, roughly the same as London's, and the new cathedral was intended to reflect its importance as a large and powerful mercantile city. Florence had become one of the most prosperous cities in Europe. Much of its wealth came from the wool industry, started by Umiliati monks soon after their arrival in the city in 1239. Bales of English wool, the finest in the world, were brought from monasteries in the Cotswolds to be washed in the River Arno, combed, spun into yarn, woven on wooden looms, then dyed beautiful colors. Vermilion, made from cinnabar gathered on the shores of the Red Sea, or the brilliant yellow procured from the crocus growing in meadows near the hilltop town of San Gimignano. The result was the most expensive and most sought after cloth in Europe. Of a population estimated at 94,000 before the Black Death of 1348, about 25,000 were said to have been supported by the city wool industry. In 1345, Florence was the scene of an attempted strike by a wool converse. Because of this prosperity, Florence had undergone a building boom during the 1300s, the like of which had not been seen in Italy since the time of ancient Romans. Quarries of golden brown sandstone were opened inside the city walls. Sand from the River Arno, dredged and filtered after every flood, was used in the making of mortar, and gravel was harvested from the riverbank and filled in the walls of the dozen of new buildings.
Santa Maria di Fiore was built on the site of an earlier cathedral dedicated to Santa Reparata. The ancient city building, founded in the early 5th century and having undergone many repairs, was crumbling with age, as attested in the 14th century Nuova Cronica of Giovanni Villani, and was no longer large enough to serve the growing population of the city. Other major Tuscan cities had undertaken ambitious reconstruction of their cathedral during the late medieval period, as cities as Pisa and particularly Siena, where the enormous purpose extension were never complete. After Arnulfo died in 1302, work on the cathedral slowed for the following 30 years. When the relics of Saint Zenobius were discovered in 1330, in Santa Reparata, the project obtained new interpret. In 1331, the Art della Lana, the Guild of Wood Merchants, took over exclusive patronage for the construction of the cathedral, and in 1334 appointed Guido to oversee the work, assisted by Adrian Pisano. Guido continued the Cambios design. His major accomplishment was the building of the Campanile. When Guido died in 1337, Andrea Pisano continued the building until work was again halted due to the Black Death in 1348. In 1349, work resumed on the cathedral under a series of architects, commencing with Francesco Talanti, who finished the campanile and enlarged the overall project to include the apse and the side chapels. In 1359, Talanti was succeeded by Lavaneri di Lamborghini, who divided the center nave in 4 square bays. Other architects were Alibio Amodi, Giovanni di Ambrogio, Neri di Flamarante, and Andrea Ocange. By 1375, the old church of Santa Reparata was pulled down. The nave was finished by 1380, and by 1418, only the dome remained incomplete. On 18 August 1418, the Art della Lana announced a structural design competition for erecting Neri's dome. The two main competitors were two master goldsmiths, Lorenzo Hiberti and Filippo Brunelleschi. The latter of both was supported by Cosimo di Medici. Hiberti had between the winner of a competition for a pair of bronze doors for the baptistry in 1401, and lifelong competition between the two remained acute. Brunelleschi won and received the commissions. Hiberti, appointed coadjutor, was drawing a salary equal to Brunelleschi's, and though neither was awarded the announced price of 200 florins, would potentially earn equal credit while spending most of his time on other projects. When Brunelleschi became ill or fight illness, the project was briefly in the hand of Hiberti. But Hiberti soon had to admit that the whole project was beyond him. In 1423, Brunelleschi was back in charge and took over sole responsibility. Work started on the dome in 1420 and was complete in 1436. The cathedral was consecrated by Pope Eugene IV on March 25 in 1436, which is the first day of the year according to the Florentine calendar. It was the first octagonal dome in history to be built without a temporary wooden support frame. The Roman Pantheon, a circular dome, was built in 117 to 128 AD with support structures. It was one of the most impressive projects of the Renaissance. During the consecration service in 1436, Guillermin Dufay's similar unique modeled Neuper-Robertson floors was performed. The structure of the moat was strongly influenced by the structure of the dome.
Florence Cathedral have three main structures, which are Cathedral of Florence, Dome, and Florence Baptistery. Cathedral of Florence is built as a basilica, having a wide center nave of 4 square bays, with an isosceles on either side. The chancels and transepts are an identical polygonal plan, separated by 2 smaller polygonal chambers. The whole plan forms a Latin cross. The nave and isosceles are separated by wide point Gothic arches resting on composite piers. The dimensions of the buildings are enormous, with length 153 meters, width 38 meters, width at the crossing 90 meters, and the height of the arches in the isosceles is 23 meters, while the height of the dome is 114.5 meters. The Duomo view from the height of Piazza Michelangelo. The commitment to reject traditional Gothic buttresses had been met when Neri di Fioravone model was chosen over a competing other by Giovanni di Lamborghini. The architectural choice in year 1367 was one of the first events of the Italian Renaissance, marking a break with the medieval Gothic style and a return to the classic Mediterranean dome. Italian architecture regards Gothic flying buttresses as ugly makeshifts, and since the use of buttress was forbidden in Florence, in addition to being a style favored by Central Italy traditional enemy to the north. Standing adjacent the Basilica of Santa Maria del Fiore and the Baptistery of St. John, the tower is one of the showpieces of the Florentine Gothic architecture, with its design by Giotto, its rich sculptural decoration, and the polychrome marble incrustations. The slender structures stand on a square plan with a side of 40.45 meters. It attains a height of 84.7 meters, sustained by 4 polygonal buttresses at the corner. These 4 vertical lines are crossed by 4 horizontal lines, dividing the tower into 4 levels.
The Gothic interior is vast and gives an empty impression. The relative banners of the church correspond with the austerity of religious life, as perched by Girolamo Savonarola. Many decorations in the church have been lost in the course of time, or have been transferred to the Museum Opera dei Duomo, such as the magnificent Cathedral Purpose, which is the singing galleries for the Cathedral of Luca della Robbia and Donatello. As this cathedral was built with funds from the public, some important works of art in this church honor illustrated men and military leaders of Florence. For example, Dante before the city of Florence by Domenico di Michelo. This painting is especially interesting because it shows us, apart from scenes on the Divine Comedy, a view on Florence in 1465, a Florence such as Dante himself could not have seen in his time. Funerary monument to Sir John Hawkwood by Paolo Uccello. This almost monochrome fresco transferred to canvas in the 19th century is painted in red terra work, a color closest to the patina of bronze. Besides that, equestrian statue of Nicola da Tolentino by Andrea di Castengo. This fresco transferred on canvas in the 19th century, in the same style as the previous one. It's painted in a color resembling marble. However, it is more richly decorated and gives more the impression of movement. Both frescoes portray the Condottieri as heroic figures riding triumphantly. Both painters had problems when applying in paintings the new rules of perspective to foreshortening. They used two unifying points, one for the horse and one for the pedestal, instead of a single unifying point. Above the main door is the colossal clock faced with fresco portraits of four prophets or evangelists by Paolo Usello. This one-handed liturgical clock shows the 24 hours of the Hora Italica, a period of time by ending with sunset at 24 hours. This timetable was used until 18th century. This is one of the new clocks from that time that still exist and are still working in order. The church is particularly notable for its 44 stained glass windows, the largest undertaking of this kind in Italy in the 14th and 15th century. The windows in the aisle and in the transept depict saints from the Old and the New Testament, while the circular windows in the drum of the dome or above the entrance depict Christ and Mary. It was suggested that the interior of 45-meter wide dome should be covered with a mosaic decoration to make the most of the available light coming through the circular windows of the drum and through the lantern. Grand Duke decided to have the dome painted with representation of the Last Judgment. This enormous work, 3,600 meters of painted surface, was started in 1568 by Giorgio Vasari and Federico Zuccari and will last till 1579. The upper portion, near the lantern, representing the 24 elders of epoch. 4 was finished by Vasari before his death in 1574. Federico Zuccari and a number of collaborators, such as Domenico Crestes, finished the other portion from top to bottom. Choirs of angels, Christ, Mary and saints, and at the bottom of the cupola, capital scenes and hell. These frescoes are considered Zuccari's greatest work, but the quality of work is uneven because of the input of different artists and the different techniques. Vasari had used true frescoes while Zuccari had painted in sacro.